Hello everyone. Today we will continue with chapter 2 Basic Investment Appraisal Techniques. So Basic Investment Appraisal Techniques मा चाहिँ हामीले ROC र payback मात्रै हेर्छौं. So for example we have selected project A and project B. So त्यो मध्ये हामीले only one project चाहिँ continue गर्न सक्छौं भनेर भन्देखि then to compare those two projects we have investment appraisal techniques. ROC भनेको return on capital employed and payback भनेको payback period. पहिला अब MA मा payback period चाहिँ पढिसक्नु भएको थियो होला. So ROC को formula हेर्दाखेरि ROC is average annual profits before interest and tax divided by either initial capital cost or average capital investment. ROC calculate गर्ने two ways हुन्छ. यो कुन वेबाट क्याल्कुलेट गर्ने भनेर एक्जाममा स्पेसिफाई भएको हुन्छ. हाउएभर यदि स्पेसिफाई भएन भने वी आर अलवेज टेकिङ द फर्स्ट मेथड भनेको इनिशियल क्यापिटल कस्ट. यदि एक्जाममा मेन्सन छ टु टेक द एभरेज क्यापिटल इन्भेस्टमेन्ट भनेदेखि वी हेभ टु टेक इनिशियल इन्भेस्टमेन्ट प्लस स्क्रैप भ्यालु डिभाइड बाइ 2 है. यसमा लेखेको छ. सो यसमा एउटा ध्यान दिनुपर्ने भनेको चाहिँ हाम्रो अरु सबै इन्भेस्टमेन्ट अप्रेजल टेक्निक्समा चाहिँ रेलेभेन्ट क्याश फ्लो मात्रै युज हुन्छ. whereas ROC is the only investment appraisal technique in which we take annual profits before interest and tax, not cash flow. So हामीलाई cash flow दिएछ भए हाम्रो त्यो cash flow मा चाहिँ all income and expenses, other relevant income and expenses हरु घटाउनु पर्छ. घटाइसकेपछि we reach annual profits है. र तपाईको annual profits दिएको छ भनेदेखि we don't have to make any other adjustments. So यसमा हेरौं test understanding 1. A project involves the immediate purchase of an item plan costing 110,000. It would generate annual cash flows. Annual cash flows भनेछ not profit of 24,400 for 5 years starting in year 1. The plan purchase would have a scrap value of 10,000 in 5 years when the project terminates. So determine the project's ROC using two methods. Now in this case हाम्रो cash flow 5 years को लागि हुन्छ. year 1, year 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 years को लागि हाम्रो cash flow हुन्छ 24,400. त्यसपछि plan purchase would have a scrap value of 10,000 in 5 years and its initial cost is 110,000. भनेपछि every year depreciation कति हुने भयो भन्दाखेरि 110 minus 10 divided by 5 भनेको 20,000 per year is the depreciation. So हामीले यो cash flow मा depreciation घटाउनु पर्छ minus 20,000. यो गरिसकेपछि हामीलाई every year को profit निस्किन्छ which will be 4,400. This is the average annual profit for 5 years. Every year को same हुन्छ because this is straight line method of depreciation. So यसरी हामीले average annual profit 4,400 निकालिसकेपछि त्यसपछि there are two ways to calculate ROC. One is using the initial capital cost भनेको which is 110,000 and the other method is using the average investment which is 110 plus 10,000 whole divided by 2 right? Your two methods, these are the two methods. So in this case test your understanding 2 मा ROC calculate गर भनेर भनेको छ but we have uneven cash flows. In this case uneven cash flows भएको कारणले गर्दाखेरि now we have to calculate the profit for each year and then we have to calculate the average profit for 7 years. Okay. So again यसमा cash flow दिएको छ. हामीलाई initial investment दिएछ 800,000, scrap value दिएको छ 100,000. भनेपछि हाम्रो depreciation will be straight line method मा 800,000 minus 100,000 whole divided by 7 years which will be 100,000 per year. So cash flow minus depreciation भनेको हाम्रो profit निस्क्यो. Each year को profit निस्किसकेपछि after that we have to calculate the average annual profit for 7 years. त्यो average annual profit for 7 years निकाल्नु पर्दाखेरि year 1 को will be 0 100,000 minus 100,000. Year 2 को will be 100,000. Year 3 को will be 300,000. Year 4 को 300. Year 5 को 200. Year 6 को 100 र year 7 को 50. यो 7 वर्षको एभरेज एनुअल प्रॉफिट निकाल्नु पर्यो. त्यो एभरेज एनुअल प्रॉफिट डिवाइडेड बाई either initial capital or average investment. Initial capital भनेपछि 800,000, average investment भनेपछि 800 plus 100 divided by 2, 450,000. So moving forward, initial capital cost मा अरु के हुन सक्छ भन्दाखेरि 1 cost of the new asset bought अघि नै हेरेको हामीले. नेक्स्ट भनेको net book value of existing asset to be used in the project. So हाम्रो अहिले एउटा asset छ कम्पनीमा, त्यसको net book value is 500,000 and we are going to use that asset for a new project A. Then त्यो project A को लागि initial capital cost मा त्यो asset को value will be 500,000. Investment in working capital, यसको details चाहिँ हामी पछि chapter 3 मा मात्रै हेर्छौं. अहिले working capital को अरु कुनै आउँदैन. Then finally capitalized R&D expenditure. So यदि हाम्रो अघिनको example मा जस्तै non current asset, tangible non current asset use भएको छ भन्दै हामीले depreciation calculate गरेर depreciation minus गर्नु पर्यो, whereas capitalized R&D expenditure छ भन्दै हामीले amortization calculate गरेर amortization चाहिँ घटाउनु पर्यो cash flow बाट. So advantage and disadvantage of ROCE गर्दाखेरि, advantage it is simple and it can be linked with other accounting measures, means percentage मा निस्किन्छ, so we can easily compare with others. Disadvantage भन्दाखेरि no account is taken of project life. कुनै एउटा ROCE छ 10%, दुईटा project A को पनि 10% छ, project B को पनि 10% छ. Okay. However, project A चाहिँ 3 years को लागि मात्रै छ, whereas project B को return चाहिँ 8 years को लागि छ. यो कति years को लागि हो भनेर account is not taken. No account is taken for timing of cash flow. So both projects, for example, both projects 3 years कै छ. Project A मा चाहिँ first 2 years मा huge cash flow छ, third year मा कम cash flow छ, whereas project B मा चाहिँ first second year मा केही cash flow छैन, inflow छैन, all cash flow is in the third year. So in that sense project A better भयो, but यसले त्यसलाई consider गरिदैन. Next भनेको it varies depending on accounting policies. Accounting policy straight line method भयो या reducing balance method भयो. Now profit will be different. It may ignore working capital if working capital is not given. It does not measure absolute gain, means 10% दुईटैमा छ. Okay. However, यसको चाहिँ initial investment 500,000 and then return is 50,000. यसको चाहिँ initial investment is 5,000, return is 500 मात्रै. Both को हुन त 10% हो, but actual gain त यसमा बढी छ, यसलाई चाहिँ consider गरिदैन भनेको. Absolute gain. There is no definitive investment signal. So दुईटैको 10% छ और दुईटैको चाहिँ तपाईको 10% छ प्रोजेक्ट को, कुन चाहिँ प्रोजेक्ट गो अहेड गर्ने या दुईटै प्रोजेक्ट गो अहेड नगर्ने, के गर्ने भन्दाखेरि there is no absolute definite signal. So यसलाई चाहिँ हामीले युजुअली के गर्नुपर्छ भन्दाखेरि हाम्रो required return rate कति छ. If our required return rate is 8%, then we might go ahead with the project. If our required return rate of investment is 12%, then we will not go ahead in both projects. So त्यसमा एउटा definite investment signal चाहिँ छैन. We have to decide after percentage is taken out. Next, profit versus cash flow. Profit versus cash flow, again, ROCE is the only investment appraisal technique in which profit is considered. अरु सबै investment appraisal technique मा चाहिँ cash flow is considered. Profit लाई consider गर्दाखेरि profit को disadvantage हरु के हो भन्दाखेरि, first of all, the cash is what ultimately counts, not profit, and profit is subjective. भनेको different accounting policies ले गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ different profits हरु निस्किन्छ. Finally, cash is what ultimately counts because it can be used to pay dividends. Profit can be manipulated also. All the profit might be from credit sales only. So हामीसँग profit चाहिँ छ, तर we are not able to pay dividends to our shareholders भनेपछि त्यो profit को त्यति धेरै value हुँदैन. So cash flow and relevant cash flows. Relevant cash flow भनेको it is all cash flow which is future incremental and cash based. Okay, future incremental and cash based, or it is opportunity cost. हामीले के इग्नोर गर्नुपर्छ भन्दाखेरि sunk costहरु इग्नोर गर्नुपर्छ. sunk cost means which have already been incurred. For example, project A start गर्नु भन्दा अगाडि हाम्रो एउटा technical analysis भयो. त्यो technical analysis मा we have already spent 10,000. Okay, now project A start गरे पनि त्यो खर्च भइसक्यो, start नगरे पनि त्यो खर्च भयो. Now that is a sunk cost. Okay, we cannot include that 10,000 or consider that 10,000 while calculating should we go ahead with project A or not. Next भनेको committed cost. Committed cost means हामीले project A र B दुईटा मध्ये कुन स्टार्ट गर्ने भनेर डिसाइड गर्नु पर्यो. प्रोजेक्ट A स्टार्ट गरे पनि हामीले अलरेडी रेन्टको लागि हामीले कमिट गरिसक्यौं. प्रोजेक्ट B स्टार्ट गरे पनि अलरेडी कमिट गरिसक्यौं रेन्टको लागि. वी हैव टु पे. दुईटै प्रोजेक्ट स्टार्ट नगरे पनि वी हैव टु पे द रेन्ट बिकज वी हैव अलरेडी hired or we have already signed the lease agreement. In that case, that rent is a committed cost. हामीले फ्युचरमा तिर्नु पर्ने भए पनि त्यसलाई चाहिँ प्रोजेक्ट A मा गो हेड गरे पनि क्यान्सल गरे पनि we have to pay. So that committed cost पनि again हामीले यो प्रोजेक्ट A र B स्टार्ट गर्ने कि नगर्ने भन्ने डिसिजनको लागि चाहिँ we cannot use that. नेक्स्ट भनेको नन क्याश आइटम्स लाइक फर एक्जाम्पल डिप्रिसिएसन, एमोर्टाइजेसन एटसेट्रा. यसलाई पनि रेलेभेन्ट क्याश फ्लोमा कन्सिडर गर्दैन. एन्ड फाइनली एलोकेटेड कस्ट. एलोकेटेड कस्ट और यसलाई अपोर्सन्ड ओभरहेड्स पनि भनिन्छ जुन एमएमा हामीले पढेको थियौं. सो इफ दिस इज द फ्याक्ट्री फ्लोर, यो फ्याक्ट्री फ्लोरमा यति चाहिँ अलरेडी युज भइसकेको छ. ओके, यति चाहिँ अवेलेबल छ. Now, right now, there is only one project going on. यो project मा यो whole factory floor को चाहिँ rent is apportioned. Whereas, if यसमा चाहिँ project A and यसमा चाहिँ project B run हुने हो. Right now, project A is going on. यसमा project A, यसमा project B run हुने हो भनेदेखि now यो whole factory को 80% चाहिँ rent is allocated to project A, 80% चाहिँ rent is allocated to project B. In this case, यो project B को allocated rent cost लाई चाहिँ consider गर्नु हुँदैन because this is already pre-allocated cost. Okay. Project B run गर्दाखेरि हाम्रो extra rent लाग्ने होइन. Extra rent लाग्ने होइन. So extra rent नलाग्ने भएकोले हामीले यो allocated cost लाई चाहिँ consider गर्नु हुँदैन. So एउटा question छ. Test understanding 3. A manufacturing company is considering the production of a new type of widget. Each widget will take 2 hours to make. Fixed overheads are apportioned on the basis of $1 per labor hour. If the new widgets are produced, the company will have to employ an additional supervisor of $15,000 per year. The company will produce 10,000 widgets per year. Okay. So, यसमा relevant cash flow के होता? This 15,000 is future, is incremental, and it is cash based. So this is a relevant cash flow. Whereas हाम्रो जुन fixed overheads छ, those fixed overheads are already apportioned to existing products. Okay. Now widgets हरु बनायो भनेदेखि त्यो existing products मा चाहिँ कम fixed cost allocate हुन्छ र some fixed cost will be allocated to widgets. In this case, this allocated cost is not a relevant cash flow. So our next method is payback method of appraisal. Payback method of appraisal means कति years मा चाहिँ हाम्रो investment is paid back to us. So decision rule भन्दाखेरि should we go ahead with the project or not भन्दाखेरि we have to select we have to select projects that have a specified time period of payback. So each project which has a payback period of less than 3 years हामी select गर्छौं भनेर भन्न सकिन्छ. Or project A and B छ, यसको payback period is 3 years, यसको 5 years भनेपछि we will go ahead with project A like that. Okay. So formula is payback period को formula initial investment divided by annual cash flow. यसमा एउटा example हेरौं. Test understanding 4. An expenditure of $2 million is expected to generate net cash flows of $500,000 for the next 7 years. What is the payback period? The payback period will be initial investment is $2 million. हाम्रो एनुअल क्याश फ्लो इज 500,000 भनेपछि हाम्रो 4 इयर्समा चाहिँ पे ब्याक पिरियड हुने भयो 4 इयर्समा चाहिँ हाम्रो इनिशियल इन्भेस्टमेन्ट इज पेड ब्याक टु अस whereas if we have a project of uneven cash flows like this, in this case the expected payback period will be हाम्रो इनिशियल इन्भेस्टमेन्ट छ 1900 यो कति इयर्समा पे ब्याक हुन्छ भन्दाखेरि फर्स्टमा 300 प्लस 500 800 प्लस 600 1400 प्लस 800 2200 भयो सो यो दुईटा इयर्सको बीचमा हुने भयो पे ब्याक पिरियड यो दुईटा इयर्सको बीचमा हुने भयो नाउ वी हेभ टु क्याल्कुलेट इट इज 3 इयर्स एन्ड सम मन्थ्स भनेर क्याल्कुलेट गर्नु पर्यो सो यो क्याल्कुलेट गर्नलाई 1 2 3 3 इयर्समा हाम्रो 600 प्लस 500 11 12 13 1400 1400 अलरेडी रिटर्न आइसक्यो नेक्स्ट इयर हाम्रो 800 रिटर्न आउँछ बट फर द पे ब्याक वी ओन्ली नीड अनदर 500 1400 प्लस 500 विल बी 1900 सो हामीलाई नेक्स्ट 500 मात्र चाहिन्छ नि 500 कति मन्थ्समा आउँछ त इयर 4 मा भन्दाखेरि 500 divided by 800 into 12 months okay so this will be 7.5 भनेपछि our payback period will be 3 years and 7.5 months moving on with payback with uneven cash flows advantage and disadvantage of payback period advantage भनेको it is simple to use and it can be useful in certain situations भनेको rapidly changing technology मा we want payback period to be as less as possible because after a few years it might be obsolete and improving investment conditions it favors quick returns and helps company grow because we are choosing the project which has the least amount of payback period so हाम्रो risk पनि कम हुने भयो and it maximizes liquidity because we are choosing the project with the least payback period so हाम्रो liquidity risks हरु पनि एकदमै लो हुने भयो it uses cash flow not accounting profit as I said before ROC is the only project which uses accounting profit however disadvantages include it ignores returns after the payback period so payback period 4 years हो तर the cash flow goes on till another 10 years भनेदेखि त्यो next 10 years को cash flow लाई चाहिँ ignore गर्छ it ignores the timing of the cash flow okay so project A project B दुईटैको payback period is 4 years project A को चाहिँ 90% of the cash inflow is in project 1 year 1 and the remaining 10% is in year 4 okay दुईटैको 4 years छ payback period whereas project B ma 10% of the returns is in year 1 and the 90% remaining is in year 4 in this case हामीलाई दुईटैको 4 years भनेर देखाउँछ payback period मा however it ignores this factor यसमा त project A is certainly better it ignores this it is subjective भन्दाखेरि it has no definitive investment signal so 4 years भनेपछि should we go ahead or not भनेर देखाइदैन the only appraisal method which has a definitive investment signal is net present value मा चाहिँ पोजिटिभ छ या नेगेटिभ छ भनेर क्लियरली देखाइन्छ then it ignores project profitability so as I said before दुईटैको प्रोजेक्ट को payback period is 4 years तर प्रोजेक्ट A मा चाहिँ after 4 years केही पनि इन्फ्लो छैन whereas प्रोजेक्ट B मा after 4 years another 100,000 को next 2 years सम्म चाहिँ क्याश इन्फ्लो छ यो दुईटालाई चाहिँ इग्नोर गर्छ okay both मा चाहिँ 4 years भनेर मात्रै देखाइन्छ let's look at some tested understanding so tested understanding 8 which of the following is an example of relevant cash flow market research expenditure already incurred this is a sunk cost so यसलाई इग्नोर गर्नुपर्छ additional tax that will be paid on extra profits generated is not a relevant cash flow because त्यो profit भनेको it is not cash based whereas the tax which has to be paid on the extra profit generated is a relevant cash flow because हाम्रो profit credit मा भए पनि हामीले ट्याक्स चाहिँ क्याशमै तिर्नुपर्छ सो त्यो कारणले गर्दाखेरि this is a relevant cash flow. Centrally allocated overheads that are not a consequence of undertaking the project, so this is allocated overheads, not a cash flow, and tax allowable depreciation is also not a cash flow. Even though tax allowable depreciation is not a cash flow because it is depreciation and it is non-cash, the tax saving on the tax allowable depreciation, this is a relevant cash flow because tax saving भनेको future हुन्छ, incremental हुन्छ र cash based हुन्छ. Even though depreciation is a non-cash expense, हाम्रो tax मा जेसुकै saving हुन्छ, that is a cash saving. Okay, so त्यो कारणले गर्दाखेरि tax saving on tax allowable depreciation is a relevant cash flow. Okay, besides this अरु testing understandings हरु relatively easy नै छ. I will not discuss one by one. So आजको लागि यति मात्रै. Thank you very much.